The biggest thing about starting New World Aeternum is sticking to the main story quest. It's going to gate a lot of your progression, and it's going to be how you get most of your experience, with levels also being a significant gate, that you can't equip certain armor and certain gear until you reach a high enough level. Also, a lot of activities, seasonal events and stuff, those are going to be restricted by levels as well. So anything that isn't sticking to the main story quest is a distraction and kind of a waste of time. So unless you get like a really high level and you're under-leveled compared to what the story wants, you don't need to worry about doing things. You're going to have a much better time if you just try to get as high of level as possible, as fast as possible, then actually treat the game like an MMO. Now, I made a more detailed New World leveling guide, so if you want to find out how to efficiently get to max level, you should check that out. And if you enjoy any of my New World guides, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It really helps out. I'm going to be doing full New World coverage. But you really do want to get level 60, 65 as fast as possible and blitz through the story. That way you get access to like 80% of the game's content. But before you get there, you have some choices to make, such as Archetypes. This is a new part of New World Aeternum that you get to choose a class when you begin, and it gives you trade skill boosts. So this is also going to be its own guide that may or may not be released by the time you watch this video. Now, the very important thing to know about this is that the weapon types you choose don't matter at all. You can change your weapons, you can change your armor whenever you want, you can respec your stats for free for a while, so this doesn't matter. You can just buy new gear, get drops, and then go to the class you want to. The important part are the trade skills, and trade skills are going to give you a massive boost. Now in the beta, it was level 50. Depending on how it goes, I might like edit the video a little bit what it is for the actual launch. But any level head start on trade skill is going to be absolutely massive. So if you have a profession in mind, like, oh, I want to make weapons, I want to do mining, I want to do woodcutting, you should just pick based on that, whatever appeals to you the most. Now, if you're trying to do it for money, that's where my guide is going to go a bit more in detail, because harvesting is actually huge. Now, even though it sounds boring, picking an archetype that gives you harvesting is actually going to be super busted, because the harvesting levels are annoying and slow and tedious. So jumping into the elemental nodes and then also the higher level plants is going to be really profitable and really good. And a lot of those ingredients are also going to be used for alchemy. So like low key, I think the best one is going to be Mystic. Who cares about weaving? Saving money and time on harvesting alchemy is huge, but also occult is looking pretty strong. Jewelry is where some of the more expensive items are, and then having high smelting and mining is going to fuel all the people that want to level up the other professions and make other gear. But there's a lot of other choices, so you can do what you want, or you can play for the profitability, and I'm going to go more in detail on that in other guides. And one of the best tips for New World is finding an energy drink to fuel your grind. I choose G Fuel. It's the best energy drink I found for work or gaming. The focus complex hits. It gets me locked in and performing at my best. Also, tons of delicious flavors to choose from. You can even pick up a starter kit, and that way you can find out if G Fuel is right for you. Use code VERLICIFY for 20% off your G Fuel order, especially if this video helped out. It's the best way for showing support for my content, and you get some good stuff in return. Back to the video. And then when it comes to your stats, there's going to be multiple ways of affecting your stats, but the primary ones are going to be gear and levels, and that's where the free respecking comes in. So you go character attributes, and then you can assign points to the stat that you want. Now you might notice like, oh, I'm already starting off with intelligence if I start occultist. That's because the base gear they give you starts off with the stats for your archetype, but you swap out your gear and then you swap out those stats. That's why you don't have to worry about it at all. If you want to know what stats you should focus on, then you click on Weapon Mastery, and it tells you what the weapons scale with. So if you start off with like a staff, but you want to use a sword, then you just kind of see what the sword wants, and you start speccing into those. Eventually you swap out your gear, and then everything's fine. And if you're staying on the story, your gear does not matter for a long time, dozens of levels. Now, the first time you make it into town, you do want to go to a trading post to buy the weapons that you want, because there's weapon levels and weapon experience. So yeah, if you don't plan on doing any kind of staff or bow or anything, well then, yeah, you want to buy the weapons that you want. You start getting experience as soon as possible. There's going to be tons of people selling all the extra stuff they get, so just find something cheap that you can afford, and then you can change out your gear, weapon, and armors. You don't have to do it all the time. Like, every time you get a level, you don't have to upgrade all your gear. Really, the only time you need to upgrade is if there's a part in the story you can't beat, and there's going to be like some solo content from time to time, like soul trials, or just like a boss you have to take on by yourself. If you struggle with that, just teleport back to a city, upgrade all of your gear as cheap as possible, and then you should be able to do it. The story content is piss easy. But then, depending on when you're playing the game, especially if it's like a populated server, there's going to be new accounts and a lot of players playing anyways, so you can just kind of share all of the main story quest objectives, and you're not going to have problems, potentially even all the way to max level or the entire story. Also, when heading into town for the first time, check your map and look for side quests. So those are going to be the smaller yellow diamonds, going to help with experience, but also kind of guide you as a good tutorial for the rest of the game, and you can find supply run outside of the town. If you need a full set of tools, that's where you go into your camp, you make a set of flint tools, you harvest some materials, and then you kind of kickstart your gathering and processing, and that's going to help out with your skills and give you a little bit of questing. Also, when you gain territory standing, it's going to say you can buy a house, and at some point during the story, or when you hit a certain level, it says, hey, you can get a house, and the first house is discounted, and you want to get that immediately, because you can teleport back to your house whenever you want. Sometimes it costs Azoth, sometimes it's just going to be available every couple of hours, but it's going to be really nice, because if you can't teleport back to the inn, then you can just go to your house. And you can also decorate your house to get character buffs, so if you buy or make a chest, that's going to expand the storage for that town the house is located in, and you can also get global character buffs by putting in trophies that give you all kinds of benefits for damage, crafting, and other skills. I don't think the location of your first house really matters. A lot of people set up in Windsward, Everfall, and then Brimstone Sands, and it's going to pretty much just be like all the main locations. And then you can set up your in-fast travel wherever you want. That's going to be pretty good, but you end up with 3 houses, so you can just kind of set them up wherever you want personally. If you just like a town or you like an area, put a house there. It doesn't have to only be like Everfall or Windsward, even though Brimstone Sands being like a big endgame area is going to be the desired endgame. Now, speaking of territory upgrades, completing the town board, which we're going to talk about, faction missions, which we're going to talk about, and just doing activities inside of an area is going to give you reputation, and that upgrades the area. Now, every level has diminishing returns, so you kind of want to be strategic about how you upgrade it, that you can just kind of base upgrade everything in an area, and that's going to give you around 5% bonuses, reduction in trading tax, or crafting taxes, or other bonuses like experience and territory standing. But then what you want to do is focus on standing, focus on faction tokens, and then focus on player experience, because even questing in that area will get the experience boost, so that's going to be really good for power leveling your character. You can get a lot of town reputation in a short amount of time, so you want to hit, like level 10 just off of doing town board and factions and questing and stuff, and then you're going to have a good baseline for everything, and then you focus on standing, faction tokens, and experience in that order. Which brings us to factions. Once you hit like level 17 and a part of the main quest, you're going to see an orange, green, and purple symbol on your map, and that's going to be choosing your faction. Whatever faction you want to join, that's a more personal decision, but you want to do it as fast as possible because you get an experience boost, you get all kinds of other benefits depending on what faction owns the territory that you're in. If it's your faction, then you're going to get bonuses from that, and also you can take on faction missions, so you want to just select all those. If they overlap with a quest, or if there's one nearby, you can do that, and then by completing them you get faction tokens, experience, territory standing. It's going to be a huge part of the gameplay loop, and then you can turn in the faction tokens to get all kinds of crazy rewards and gear upgrades. You can also get new harvesting equipment and tons of in-game stuff, and then you want to get as much experience with that, upgrade, keep gaining levels, keep gaining like higher faction standing and power and upgrades. At level 20, the Mount quest unlocks in Everfall. You also want to do that as soon as possible because moving faster means you just do everything in the game more efficiently. Like I said in the beginning of the video, if you're getting distracted and doing other things, you're really just wasting your time. The best way to get the most out of the game in the long run is min-maxing and super sweating early on. And that brings us to the town board. So town board is going to be good for getting buffs for that town, as well as upgrading it and getting higher level stations and being able to do more inside of it. So as a community, everyone wants to work towards it, but they're kind of a waste. You should take some, and then again, if it overlaps with a faction mission or main story, that's cool, but some things are just kind of not worth it. It takes too much time to do, or too many resources for too little experience. The town board has been nerfed over time because it used to be one of the best leveling methods, and it kind of dominated the economy too much. But depending on your money situation and how the economy is going, you do want to buy a few hundred fibers, iron ore, iron bars. If they're super duper cheap and flooded on the market, also same thing for like light rations and meals and stuff, because people are going to be making them for levels. If you buy up a lot of those and you just have them in your storage, that means you can visit the town board and auto-complete them for quick experience, not really too much profit. So it is nice to just kind of buy up what you see going on the town board if you can find it for cheap, and then every 30 minutes or whenever there's a refresh, you just kind of do that for a little bit of extra optimization. Also, when completing the main story and side quests and town missions and faction missions, it's just kind of obvious, but also a good reminder to pay attention to everything on your map. You can just start clicking buttons and checking everything that you got, and you might forget, like, oh wait, if I check the map, there's something right over there that I need to complete. So you can also kind of plan out an efficient route about that. And you really want to pay attention to shrines as well, because it's going to be more annoying to go back to an area you've already been to unlock the shrine if you're trying to like just unlock everything in the late game. Whereas if you're kind of close by, it's worth going out of your way, going to a shrine, and then using that to teleport back to town. So optimizing your movement and fast travel and stuff like that is going to be very important. As you play the game more, you get more comfortable with all the routing and stuff like that, but you really want to focus on it at all times. And then make sure all of your control schemes are good, and to like remap your mouse buttons. If you've got a gamer mouse that has like 2 little buttons on the thumb or something, that I like putting my crouch in a more accessible place. I also like it to where I can activate other skills a lot more naturally, or drink potions or something. So, like, get yourself really comfortable in the game early on. Also, depending on your monitor setup, if you have a dual screen or if you have one monitor, I just have, like, one really big 1440p monitor. So what I do is I go into windowed, and then I split the screens between that and a map or a podcast or video that I'm watching. That way I just have something else going on. But it is really nice to have a map quickly accessible, and if you don't have a dual screen monitor, you can actually still have access to that. There's things where people are going to say, oh, you can use Overwolf or you can use some kind of plugin. That's kind of been a weird thing the entire time with Amazon Game Studio, because they've been open about how they don't want maps to provide too much more to the game and become like 100% necessary. But depending on the maps and overlays you download, they might say they're TOS compliant. A lot of people don't like using Overwolf anyways, since it's pretty much malware, so you can just like open up an interactive map and then have your routes kind of planned out. You can just kind of follow that with your other screen or however you're playing the game. Since we're talking about interactive maps, you have to use them to find out everything everywhere in the game on the map. Your little iron node runs, all these other resources. There's going to be an insane amount of competition, so finding like your own little spot or trying to do it a little more efficiently than other people is going to be huge. And that brings us to the actual landmarks, because when you're inside of landmarks, you want to loot the chests that are inside of it, but there's different tiers of chests, there's different kinds of stockpiles, and they're going to give you different items. So finding recipes in the food crates, huge. That people are going to pay crazy amounts of money, because that's another way that you can get stat buffs. And then people that are like leveling cooking and getting higher levels, they really want to sell those for crazy amounts of profit. Same thing if you find recipes for furniture, some of those can be really, really expensive. And by playing around with interactive maps, you can see there's different kinds of this. There's going to be tiers to the loot that you're finding. There's going to be tiers to the stockpiles. Some of them are just chests. Some of them are just regular crates and stuff. And those are going to affect the loot tables, which I'm not going to get super duper into. But what you want is the big chest at the end. And when you get into like the higher tier stockpiles, that's where you can start finding crafting ingredients for furniture, where like you get lucky dice out in Weaver's Fen, you just made tens of thousands of gold. Or if you find a purple or orange item that says it can be used to upgrade one of your trophies, you just hit the jackpot. So when you're doing resource runs, it's not only about all of the high-level mining nodes or the ores or rare herbs and stuff like that. You actually want to know where the stockpiles are as well, and then that's going to turn into a huge source of profit, and it also gives you better gear, and there's a lot of avenues for that. And eventually you get into the end game and you learn about world tours and chest runs, and then congratulations, that's your life now. But that's later in the game and for different videos, so I hope you guys enjoy the video. I hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.